Don't rest in peace. Come see what you have made through factless science. Nature was deceived. Your cleverness, so many souls now slayed and many more still, failed to be conceived. And still your theories thrive and run amok. Lost smiles, laughs of endless girls and boys. Stone-like belief in breeding better stock through agriculture means. You have destroyed. If you can see the misery you've caused through an arrogant attempt to make things fine, I wonder if you've ever stopped and paused. Humanity and ethics in decline. But still, you would insist that you are right. Survival of the fittest, still the fight.
Who are you? Might I ask, upon what business do you enter my world?
Your world. And within that careless phrase, you do reveal your pompous arrogance your so-called work conceals.
I'm reminded of a lunatic asylum in Vienna. A buxom and uncommonly attractive young lady dashed at me with a joyful scream, clasped me tightly to her bosom with both of her arms, and called me her long-lost Fritz. Myself pink to the ears. Once again, madam, I must ask you your name, and for some assurance that you're not insane. I can only assume that you are stricken with some strange hysteria if you dared to take some tone with me. I can assure you pomposity and arrogance are not common traits within my family.
I am known as mitochondrial Eve, unbroken lineage for many years. I summoned you to challenge your beliefs and show you endless oceans made of tears. All sisters, cousins, brothers, true are we, lucky mother to you all, I be.
How dare you? Shall I fetch the magistrate? no mother to me. I come from an excellent family tree, a family tree of worthiness. See my tree, my family of faultless, flawless specimens, the uniform of standard norm arranged in even regiment. Every branch and every leaf is chosen for its perfect form. No thought to what it holds beneath, just shapely branches that conform. Don't deviate, just replicate. Take care to be like me. I advocate for the stern and straight to build society. See my tree, the symmetry of picture-perfect specimens, the uniform of standard norm arranged in unflawed regiment. As it grows at standard speed, its form remains agreeable, and as it builds, take care to breed out faults that are foreseeable. Don't deviate, just replicate. Take care to be like me. I advocate for the stern and straight to build society. See my tree, my family of faultless...
What fault did those children of Europe have upon their souls other than being born? And what fault did those innocents locked up for lack of food who had no chance to learn? We are all branches of the same tree. As far back as the beginning of time, your cruel thoughts have brought such misery. No variance of formal mind. Look now upon the work you have done, the sums of which can never be undone.
Although eugenics programs are usually associated with Nazi Germany, they could and did happen everywhere. They focused on manipulating heredity or breeding to produce better people and on eliminating those considered biologically inferior. In the UK, 1914 to 1918, local authorities started to implement the 1913 Mental Deficiency Act by building long-stay colonies and hospitals and rounding up the mentally deficient and placing them there for life. 1920, 10,000 people with learning difficulty were in institutions, and in 1946, 60,000 were in institutions and often incarcerated. Germany, 1938. We do not subscribe to the view that one should feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, or clothe the naked. Our objectives are entirely different. We must have a healthy people in order to prevail. Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Propaganda. The Nazi determination for racial superiority targeted children first and then adults with disabilities. The project was known as T4. It is estimated that 250,000 perished. Techniques practiced were later industrialised, resulting in the murder of over 6 million Jews, including 1.5 million children. In the 1920s and 1930s, eugenic sterilisation laws were passed in 24 of the American states, in Canada and in Sweden. These laws were not abolished until the 1960s and 70s. Romania, 2007, Romani women had still been sterilised unwillingly in the Czech Republic. China, 2021. In northern China, Uyghurs, a religious and racial minority group, have been subjected to mass sterilisation and other measures of extreme population control. All forced sterilisation campaigns, regardless of their time or place, have one thing in common. They merge perceptions of disability with racism, xenophobia and sexism, resulting in the disproportionate sterilisation of minority groups.
Madam, bad people did monstrous things with my ideas. But that does not mean that these ideas in themselves are wrong. On the contrary, if proper attention to detail is applied, then according to my statistical analysis, the desired improvements to the human race would be achieved. For all the technological advances this world has made, do you not still have poverty, hunger, sickness, criminality, mental illness, insanity? I hence conclude that the improvement of the breed of mankind is no insuperable difficulty. If everybody were to agree on the improvement of the race of man being a matter of the utmost importance, and if the theory of hereditary transmission of qualities in men was as thoroughly understood as it is in the case of our domestic animals, I see no absurdity in supposing that in some way or other the improvement would be carried into effect.
So now I send a question to this world. Are his ideas sound or quite absurd?
But why should those less worthy, weak or strange amongst us standard folk be permitted to remain? And why should those who are healthy and productive give endless help to those who don't measure up?
You toured the globe from north, south, east and west. With arrogance, your measuring stick was made. You gauge our people, cultures and the rest. Your view of beauty, stagnant and so stayed. You called barbaric those who weren't like you. Condemned by judgments made with blinkered eyes, your measurements of life proved so untrue. You failed to see what makes us civilized.
Madam, I look at you and question how you dare question me. To be civilized, we must be free from the barbarism of hunger, crime, madness. Need I go on? Think of Mendel's law. There's a poem here that might help you understand. Oh, why are you none so foolish, you breeders who breed our men? Let the fools, the weaklings and crazy keep breeding and breeding again. The criminal, deformed and the misfit, dependent, diseased and the rest. As we breed the human family, the worst is as good as the best.
These sentiments are barbarous. And more than that, so dangerous. Your legacy is hurt and pain. But dignity, the curse to regain. Through music, art and literature. They thwart your cruel, useless cure. Condemned as useless in your eyes, they show what it is to be civilized.
School days. Not talking about the tics can make people feel that they're embarrassing or that there's shame. And that process of shame, as a disabled child, young person, adult, that process of shame starts really early. I'll always remember this particular dream that I had when I was about 4.5 years of age, which was about being in a lorry with no windows either side, and I was being carted off, taken to a school for people with disabilities. In my dream, in my head, I was imagining being whisked away in a truck full of freaks. They went, "The child is a spastic child. He'll have to go to a special school." My dad said, "He's just as clever as his sister. Why does he need to go to a different school?" In the end, they put me on probation. 4.5, I was on probation. One morning in the PE lesson, the headmaster was looking into the hall. "Where's Robin?" And the teacher went, "Up there." He was hanging with one hand up the ropes. As a neurodiverse child in the 80s, I've got some very early memories of failing, teachers talking about me. I think certainly my school life, up until the age of 9 or 10, was mainly characterized by a feeling of failure. We went into the Sunshine Variety bus and they took us to the pond. They had the ducks and the swans, and they were too lazy to let us out. We literally just sat in the bus, looked at the ducks and the swans, till they took us back. I started doing this portrait of my mum and trying to get the likeness. And of course, the more you add watercolours, the muddier the painting becomes. And so the uglier and uglier this portrait became. I got very frightened because I'd been having recurring nightmares of my mother melting, of her being made of plastic and melting. And these nightmares were accompanied by a very strong sense of smell. I'd wake up with this smell of molten plastic. And I saw this happening in this painting. They experimented quite a lot at that school, and a couple of classes were given computers. I was not part of that group. I was part of a group of children that got to walk around the hall with a hula hoop round their middle, trying not to bump into each other. We visited a shopping centre once. We never went to the shops. I was getting so desperate, I signed up to go to Sunday school. There was quite a lot of bullying, but there was also quite a lot of acceptance. I would come out with allegiances to God and spiritual nonsense. Also, I used to draw a lot. That was seen as further proof of me being a mental case. Because what I drew wasn't representational, it was from the imagination. And it was an expression of what I was feeling. That was another key thing that helped me to survive. I definitely started to feel like a problem. I was made to feel like a problem in school lots of the time. In those days, the English teacher always directed the school play. And I went up and said, "Mr. Slade, I want to audition for the school play." And I saw my first fearful smile from an adult. And I thought to myself, oh, that's weird. He's embarrassed. I did drive my chair across the gravel car park. And when they found out that I did it, they confiscated my electric wheelchair from me, put me back into a regular chair. They moved me to the junior dormitory, and they wouldn't give a time as to how long I was going to be there. And then punk happened. Of course, ideal vehicle. You go from being the school spastic to being the school punk. That is an upgrade. I'm telling you right now, it's an upgrade, because it's not about the thing that everybody thinks is negative and embarrassing. Your disability, you know?
These words you hear have come from many souls. The eloquence are proof of mindful thought. Your theories have dragged their shining light below to feel ashamed, unworthy. They were taught. But life itself would always rise above pompous misuse of intellectual strife. Our natural state is not to hate, but love. Our talent should be used to foster life. Such heinous words your theories did promote. Deep wounds you caused continue still to seep our empathy, and love you did demote. Now poisonous hate seen upon our streets. But human spirit always will break free through music, words, and art. Our liberty.
You call yourself the lucky mother. I ask you this, how lucky is it to be born with pain and on society be such a drain, a burden to the public purse, a useless eater, a life that's cursed. Madam, I do not lack compassion, nor do I lack a tender heart. I have these in plenty. But no one can deny to weed out the weak, the poor, and the mad would do us all a favor and lift us high. So, lucky mother, on one thing we do agree. We are a tree. A family with faults and flaws that replicate. No symmetry, consistency, numerous imperfect specimens. Let's make a tree of symmetry, of picture perfect specimens. I advocate for the stern and straight to build a strong society.
We're all born with pain, and for life must strive. Promise to us all is we must die. So in this time we have upon this place, what constitutes a civilized shared space?
Go to the house of some farmer. Look through his barns and his sheds. Look at his horses and cattle. Even his hogs are thoroughbreds. Then look at his stamp on his children. Low and with monkey jaw, ape-handed and silly and foolish, bred true to Mendel's law. Oh, you wise men, take up the burden. Make this your loudest creed. Sterilize the misfits promptly, all not fit to breed. Then our race will be strengthened and bettered, and our men and our women blessed, not apish, repulsive and foolish, for the best will breed the best.
My son, I need to talk to you and all the sons and daughters living now this day. What judge are you to choose who stand or fall, who gets to live or die upon your say? What intellect and art you wipe away through speedy science choose who may be born? The race for perfect specimen today will leave the world bereft and so forlorn. There is no price to put upon the smiles of children, through imagination free to run on wheels or paint or even fly. Their life is worth the same as you and me. My challenge: use your skill and intellect to overcome life's trials and not select. This one last time, I ask for you to see how research and science sets us free. This union of art and intellect is captured through this project, D4D.
D4D represents a kind of umbrella of brain. So there's lots and lots and lots of different ideas that are being allowed to flourish in this kind of an environment of research, both academics and non-academics, disabled and non-disabled people together, working together to really, really explore what exactly is going on with disability right now.
We're looking at disability and we're looking at community, but we want this to be both playful and incisive, and to challenge perceptions of the two things.
The diversity in the human race means that we cover many, many more areas than if we all had, you know, healthy people who are funny, you know, or whatever combination. Evolution does work like that. There are various quirks in our genetic makeup that mean that a lot of things that you might not at face value think are valuable end up being incredibly valuable.
Well, we're sound checking at a gig at the Green Note in Camden, celebrating the book Cull, which was written by Tanvir, and a number of artists have been asked to respond to the book.
Yeah, the song is called We Can Write England All Over Again because it tries to consider the possibility of creating a different possibility of England or London through music, through art, through writing, through companionship, and to give a bit of hope in these moments which are torrid moments of existential gloom.
We can write England all over again.
There is nothing more profound as a writer than having people respond at such a level that you're kind of in sync with them. It's very hard to talk about it, but music kind of moves that to a different place.
We have been working with Designability, and they have designed the WYSIBUG. The WYSIBUG is an early years powered mobility device that's for children under the age of 5. So at the moment, children under the age of 5 don't have access to mobility devices such as this, and Designability fundraise so that children and their families can have these free of charge. And the WYSIBUG gives a child independence to be able to move about their environment, learn about the environment, play with other children. Parents have been telling us about how it's changed, it's transformed their lives really, from being a carer of the child, for the child themselves to have this autonomy.
How people who are disabled think about community, experience belonging, and also experience exclusion and marginalisation, so what it means to be included, what it means to be marginalised or to be invisible. And really the project is about thinking through and exploring those ideas about community and belonging and identity, but also trying to enact and effect change for people.
The Guild is a participative theatre piece that helps the audience explore themes around institutional prejudice and resistance. The audience get to basically decide what happens by the end of the story, and they are the story.
I'm here because you're here. This works.
This aspect of the project draws on the history of a particular local organisation or institution in Bristol called the Guild of the Poor Brave Things, which was a Victorian institution set up philanthropically to support and look after particularly disabled children.
What is disability art? It is art that expresses my experience of life as a disabled person and my interpretation of other people's experiences. Not in a vicarious way, but in an understanding, empathetic way.
The project that Alan and I are working on specifically is called Electric Bodies, which actually comes from a Walt Whitman poem, My Body Electric. And it's a kind of further development of a poetry form that Alan's invented called transcription poetry.
Transcription poetry is that I created. I read an article some years back in the Oral History Journal where someone was an oral historian was describing how you can use the forms of poetry as a type of transcription to create a sort of more accurate transcription of oral history. And that made me wonder, well, I wonder if you could use the forms of poetry to create poetry. It turns out you can. It turns out it's a really good way for representing the experiences of disabled people, which is the thing that I'm interested in.
So I was sat at home in my living room on my laptop, and I downloaded some software and then connected through to Praminda, who was at We the Curious.
One of the things that is important for our D4D project one of the objectives has been about how technology can support people with a disability to have more access.
I think it's a very beautiful experience in terms of I was quite impressed by how real the environment felt.
The idea was I put a call out to people that had experience of living with a genetic condition, and I asked them whether they'd like to come and take part in creating a new piece of VR. We had two very full but quite complex workshops where we didn't have a clear answer at the end of those two as to how we could develop the next phase. And so I went away and really thought about that and did quite a lot more research and went back to Francis Galton, who is known as the father of eugenics.
My role, as I see it, is to help us to reflect both in individual work streams and together on what are the ethical challenges of doing the kind of work we're doing in community-based settings, working with groups with various kinds of disabilities, what kind of ethical challenges does that present, and how can we reflect on that and engage in doing our research in more ethical ways that are sort of grounded in a shared value system.
You set up a research project with research questions clearly defined. But we also want those questions to be redefined by our participants if necessary. So actually ensuring that there's coherence in it, ensuring that it's meaningful, is going to be a challenge.
Success would be understanding that genuinely involving people at a number of levels, so at grassroots level with meaningful involvement, and challenging the notion of who is the expert, who has knowledge and who can share knowledge, and how do we value that knowledge. And I think if we can demonstrate that and then have an impact at policy level, that would be what success would look like.
Imagine a world free from affliction.
Imagine a world without contradiction.
Imagine a world free from hurt.
No playing in mud or in dirt.
From love all my theories do spring.
There are voices that never will sing.
Through selection we will get the best.
But again, think of all of the rest. What we lose.
Who we choose.
What is lost.
What the cost.
Who will we be? Which you and which me?